how to come up with the title of your book. Hey there, it's Brian Dixon from Hope Books, where we help you discover, share, and publish your message of hope. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through 3 ideas for your book title using books from our Hope 100. Our Hope 100 is a list, a curated collection of life-changing books as recommended by our Hope writers. So let's talk about your book title, because that's one of the hardest parts of writing a book, is figuring out, what do I actually call this book? And there are 3 strategies that I have implemented with our authors at Hope Books to help them figure out their ideal title. The first one, and my favorite, is a manifesto. And by manifesto, I mean like you're wanting to live out this idea of your life. So it's a mindset, it's a mission, it's a manifesto. So for example, I have 3 books here from our Hope 100, and these are all manifesto titles. So for example, we have Bob Goff's incredible book called Love Does. Now, why this is a manifesto is when you're like, I don't know what I should do for the day. Like, what should I do? How should I treat that person in this situation? Like, how do I show up? Well, what would love do? What would love do? That is what this book is about. It's kind of like a question. See, a manifesto often like leads to a question, and then that leads to the answer. The answer is, well, love does. Well, what does love do? Oh, I know what I'm supposed to do now because of love. Okay, here's another example. I love this one. This is called Ego is the Enemy. Ego is the enemy. You start to go, well, what about me? What about my perspective? I feel wronged. I feel like those people are taking advantage of me, etc. You're like, wait a second. Ego is the enemy. I'm getting in the way of my own next step and my own productivity and my own success because ego is the enemy. And literally, Ryan Holiday, the author of Ego is the Enemy, he has it tattooed right there on his forearm. Ego is the enemy. One of my most recent books, Start with Your People. What am I supposed to do today? Well, start with your people. How do I grow my following online? Start with your people. How do I figure out what to write about? Start with your people. Who are the people in your life that you can help already? And just start with them. And no, I don't have a tattoo, but if I did, that's what I would say. It would say, start with your people. Show up for your kids, show up for your spouse, show up for your team, show up for the people that are already in your community, and your thing is going to grow. These are 3 examples of manifesto titles. So what about you? Do you have like this mindset that you say a lot, that you tell your kids, that you share with your friends? Maybe there's a title inside of that manifesto. The second type of title is a promise. So what is the promise of your book? What is the fulfillment? What is the outcome once somebody reads your book? What will be true in their life? Let's look at a couple examples from the Hope 100. Okay, I have a few promise titles from the Hope 100. The first one, this one, I think it's going to be really clear, is A Praying Life. It's called The Promise of the Reading. So if you read this book, what will happen? You'll have a praying life. Do you get it? Well, what's the book about? It's about having a praying life. Well, what will I learn in this book? I will learn how to have a praying life. It's so clear, and that's why this book has sold 500,000 copies. All right, here's another one, a little controversial. How Not to Die. The answer is, if you read this book, you won't die. Okay, well, maybe you won't like live forever, but you probably will live longer. So it's a little tongue-in-cheek, how not to die, but there's a promise, and that's why it's a New York Times bestseller, because it's an incredible title. Another one is The Compound Effect. I want the compound effect in my life. Well, what is the compound effect? All right, he's going to tell you what it is and tell you how to live it. And you're like, oh, I want that compound effect. Now, often the subtitle can explain the title. We're not going to get into the subtitle today, but the subtitle is actually your friend because it will help to support the main title. But The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and look at over 1 million copies sold. Why? Because it's a promise. If I read this book, I will be able to leverage the compound effect in my life. And finally, one more classic, another #1 bestseller is The Millionaire Next Door. If I read this book, I will understand what millionaires next door do, and then therefore I will probably become a millionaire next door. Do you get it? It is the promised result of what happens after I read the book. That is a compelling book title. Finally, the third way to title your book is to name it after your system. You have a system that your book teaches, what I often call the problem promise path. So that path is your framework, your foundational framework, your transformational tale. It's your system. So for example, if you want to improve your relationships, did you know that there's 5 love languages? You call it the 5 love languages. That's an example. So what is the system, or what is the strategy? What is the process that you teach inside of your book? Name your book that process. Let me give you a couple examples. All right, we have 3 process titles. So let's go through them. The first one is the 5 love languages. Guess what? Guess what this book is going to teach you? It's going to teach you the process, the 5 love languages. And it's implied in the title that you will discover your language, that you have a love language, that everybody else in your life has a love language. And if you know what the love language is, you go through the process of discovering and living that love language, and therefore you're going to have a better life. It is telling you what the process is inside of the title. Another one is 48 Days to the Work You Love. My old mentor, Dan Miller. 48 Days to the Work You Love. Guess what you get? You get a 48-day system when you buy the book. That's pretty amazing. It's like a $20 book, and you're going to learn how to get work you love in 48 days. He is telling you this is the system. Buy the book, follow my system. Classic 7 habits of highly effective people. It's the process. The process is, what are the habits? I'm going to follow those habits that Covey will teach me in this book so that I'm more highly effective. The book is not called How to Be Effective or The Effective Life. It is called The 7 Habits because it's teaching the process in the title. And finally, the 10X rule by Grant Cardone. The 10X rule. He's going to tell you what the 10X rule is and how to follow the process of the 10X rule so you can have a 10X life. Do you notice it's not called the 10X life? It's called the 10X rule because that is the process for you to get the results that you want. So these are all process titles. And do you know one thing? Do you notice one thing that's common of all these titles? If you do, put it in the comments. I'm going to tell you in 3, 2, 1. They all have numbers 10, 7, 48, 5. So what if you're writing a book for parents and you said the 5 things never to say to your teen? That's a book that you would want to read, right? That's a process title. Or you could have a manifesto title when talking to your teen, like Words of Life, like something like that. And it's like, oh, I just need to use Words of Life, like Words of Life for Teens. Okay, that would be interesting. And then you could have like the Family Harmony. Okay, the Family Harmony is the result. So you either have the manifesto, you have the promise, or you have the process. Another way to explain these 3 titles is all P words. One of them is the promise, so what's the end result? The other one is the process, so what is the step-by-step process? And finally, the third word starts with the P, but it doesn't sound like it. It's the philosophy. What is the life philosophy that you live out? What's the mindset? You have the philosophy book, you have the process book, and you have the promise book. So you decide which one, but you have to pick one of them. Are you focusing your title on this is the philosophy, this is the manifesto, this is the mindset that we want to help you live when you read the book? Or is yours a promise book? After you read this book, you'll be able to live out this promise. This is the new life. This is the promised land. Or number 3, is it the process? What's the 5 steps, the 7 steps, the 3 elements, the 21 day? That is a process title. So what about you? As you think about your book title, which one makes the most sense for you? Is it philosophy? Is it promise? Or is it process? Let me know in the comments below. And if you need help writing and publishing your book, check out hopebooks.com because we believe that the world needs your hope-filled words more now than ever before.